G'day guys, welcome back to Lost Scoutcraft. Today I'm going to be teaching you the basics of navigation and orienteering. For this lesson you're going to be requiring a basic map compass, a see-through plastic ruler if you have one, and of course your map. Today we're at the Adelaide Botanic Gardens and this is one of the standard park maps. So now we're going to be teaching you how to do triangulation. Triangulation is a technique used to find your exact location on a map by using landmarks and bearings. So the landmarks that I'll be working off today are the Botanical Museum, the greenhouse sort of thing over here, and then this little shed over here. And I know I'm roughly around here somewhere, but I want to know exactly where I am on this map so that I can get a proper bearing. Right, so the first bearing we're going to be taking is from the little greenhouse here, and just behind me you can see the roof of it right through the trees over there. Okay, so to take the bearing for our set of triangulation, what we're going to do is we're going to have this black arrow here with the little glow-in-the-dark dot here, and we're going to point that as accurately as possible towards the landmark. So I have it pointed about as accurate as I can get it now, and what we're going to do is we are now going to turn the shed, which is the red triangle in the dial, and line it up with the north arrow, creating red in the shed. And here it'll show us the amount of degrees that we have, which I believe is about 265 degrees. Okay, so we have taken our bearing and we have kept the dial on the correct bearing. So now we have our map, and we want to make sure that our map is oriented correctly to magnetic north, because that's what we're running off. So basically what we want to do now is, with these small thin black lines, that's the appropriate way to do it. However, you can just use the side of the compass, which I will do for this purpose, and line up one end of your compass as close to where you've got the bearing from as possible, so the top of the roof there. So I'm going to line that up to there, and then I'm going to move the compass on that point until red lines up in the shed and it's on the correct bearing. So that's about right. And then what I'm going to do after that, actually I'll do it up to the door, and what we're going to do after that is, from here we're just going to draw a line down, so we have a nice thin line going across our landscape. So we are somewhere on that line, but we're not sure where we are. Alright, now we're going to take our second bearing in the triangulation. So we're going to be aiming at the doors of the Botanic Museum over there. So once again, the direction of travel arrow towards the doors as accurately as you can get it, and then you turn your dial so it's red in the shed, and we are at about 342 degrees, so as displayed here. So now, keeping our map oriented to north, we have our next bearing for the Botanic Museum, and what we're going to do is going to line it up to the doors along the edge of our compass and make sure it's accurate as possible for the bearing, and then we draw another line. And as you can see, we are now getting across here, so we are most likely around these trees here, and we will soon have a slightly more accurate when we take the next bearing. Alright, for our final landmark for triangulation, we will be using that little brick shed over there, and we're going to take the bearing for it again. So once again, direction of travel arrow towards the building, and line up the dial with the correct bearing. So I will just double sure. So that is now our correct bearing. Okay, so we have our final bearing, and it is from this little brick shed here, and we're now going to line it up. So from the middle of the shed, and going to move the bearing around correctly. So now we have a line here, and I must note that this map is not accurate to scale or the correct placement of things. As you can see, we have a very broad triangle here, and normally that would be smaller, as into like literally crossing over each other, but in this circumstance you can just narrow it down so that you sort of just cross in between and find the exact center, and that's good enough to find where you are. So now that we have our bearing, we merely line up the direction of travel arrow, and we line up red in the shed, and then we look down the direction of travel arrow and we find a landmark further down the track that's in a reasonable distance, and then we take that and then we walk to it instead of having to hold the compass throughout the whole thing. So our landmark that we're going to is the brick shed, and we're going to the furthest corner of it. Alright, so we have our direction now to that corner. Let's start walking. Okay, so now we are at our location, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to find our location that we want to get to. And obviously, if you can see over there, there is a very large brush teepee, and that's what we're trying to head to. But just for the sake of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go across the little creek that's down here to this sort of spiky tree just across there. So I'm going to line it up with the landmark and this spiky tree over there. So let's go walk over there then. Okay, so we are now here at the tree that I took my bearing from, and as you can see over there we have the teepee. So we are going to line up our bearing, and it is obviously the teepee, and in objects when there wasn't a creek here, we could just follow this bearing to the next landmark. For instance, the large rocks inside of the cages there. There's a bit of a retaining wall, but for this situation we're just going to walk around because there is an obvious bridge going around. So anyway, we'll just pretend that that's our landmark of the large rocks, and we'll walk around there. Zoom that, and then I'll slow that down.
It's not really zoomed in enough, but
And now, as we can see, we've come across from that tree over there, and we have now ended up here from our bearing. And obviously, if we walk this way, just up these stairs is the teepee that we were supposed to go to. So, come up here, cameraman. So, this is the teepee, and if we stand right here and we look down there, you can see from where we came from that tallest pine tree to that brick shed to this wall in a straight line. So yeah, anyway, this has been Lost Scoutcraft. Thanks for paying attention. Hope you learned something. Please like and subscribe. See you on the next one.